Hello, welcome to Conspiracy Theory. This episode is Planes Can't Kill Buildings and Rock, Paper, Scissors. But they can in reality. This is allegedly a picture, according to some, of thermite going off. This picture, I just want you to see those sagging figures and how things are at an angle in there. That's understandable, don't you think? You know, being hit by a plane. Notice the video light level intensity is adjusted in this, so those are not the exact colors or brightness that you'd see it. Now, this is very controversial. This is allegedly molten steel, according to the conspiracy theorists. But it's far more likely aluminum. For one thing, see how at the bottom it's not black, but silvery like aluminum? See how it fans out more like aluminum would than iron, which is much more dense? But it's yellow, it's not white. Well, aluminum can burn it yellow, and it's not pure aluminum. There's a bunch of furniture in it. Here's another picture of that. And you can see more clearly the pieces that have cooled at the bottom. Look like shiny pieces of aluminum. And again, notice how it's fanning out in the air. Now the other thing is, it's not just aluminum, which would be from the plane, from the oxygen, for all kinds of stuff in the plane, but that part of the building that was leaking has a UPS center. You know, there's a lot of things in this building, plastics and all kinds of metals. So it's important to consider that it's not just jet fuel that's burning, it's a plane burning primarily. Now look at this picture. This jet's aluminum caught fire from the friction of running off. It's an Air France jet off the end of a runway. The fuel on the wings by chance did not ignite. The whole thing, the whole shell burnt to the ground because the aluminum caught fire from friction. Yeah, friction causes energy, and you could go, but that's just the energy from rubbing my hands together. That's not very much. Well, it's a little different when a whole plane goes into a building or floors of a building start to compress and have a pressure. That's energy. It all ends up as heat in a situation where there's already a fire or there's already heat. It creates a lot of heat. It can start fires. I believe this is the same plane finishing off. Now, another thing is when you pour aluminum, it's a fairly straightforward, it stays in its liquid form and you're pouring it. When you pour iron and steel, you get a much more sparky thing, and you could go and look, but there is quotes about this, the special look of molten iron being poured, going back to, Dante and Aristotle. Now, the other thing is that iron burns in air. Before it actually becomes liquid, it starts to burn. Did you know that rusting iron, of course, is iron oxidizing? Fire is the oxidation process in air of something. Iron is always, quote unquote, burning in air. It rusts. And it burns/rusts faster the hotter it is. And if it gets hot, it doesn't have to be molten yet. It will continue to get hotter like magic, except for just like a bunch of sticks get hotter and hotter as they burn more and more. So with this injection of heat, it is inevitable that the iron in the steel is going to consume itself. Now, the temperatures of various things are used to promote the conspiracy theory. The NIST for the 9/11 burned office furniture and stuff found 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, way less than industrial steel melts at. But steel loses 50% of its strength at 60% of its melting temperature. Okay, and it starts to warp and change and warp change. And I can show you pictures of truck fires underneath overpasses where the beams got all warped. And if it was vertical, holding one of the biggest buildings in the world, that's a problem. And steel at these temperatures will burn and increase in temperature when heated until it eventually looks like it is vaporized. And it can become molten just from this process. As far as there being molten metals pouring out of the impact site or nearby, the melting point of aluminum, which is basically what airplanes are made of, is just 1200. Now, the pockets in the Twin Tower, according to the NIST, got up to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, way above even the burning office. But the burning temperature of hydrogen is also 2300. Did you know that oxidization releases hydrogen? If you have a massive amount, things that seem abnormal are going to happen in this kind of situation where you have enough iron and things burning and chemical reactions producing hydrogen. There are going to be flares within that fire of hydrogen burning around 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. Not unlikely. Also not known, but we are not saying that we know exactly what happened. It must be this or that. You know, you guys are. The fact is, you want to say that it has to be a demolition. No, it does not. So the points I would like to point out. Now, I'm not a big aficionado on 9/11 stuff, but having some scientific, background and knowledge, I can judge. I've looked this stuff up. First of all, conspiracy theorists. Iron burns. The rusting process is burning. You heat it up, it happens faster. You get it hot enough, it will keep getting hotter. Oxidization produces hydrogen. And this is just a little note on the fact that there's all kinds of things. There's lead batteries. There's all sorts of things in that building. If the match you use to light it is an aeroplane. Okay, aluminum also burns. There is a lot of aluminum. All the computers, lots of stuff have aluminum frames. Molten metal seems to be coming from the impact site. That's what you would expect from pooled metal. That then, as the floors buckled and shifted and the building started to come down, poured out. It switches around like a flow, not like somebody doing a trigger demolition of it that happened to produce molten metal. You would have to have a lot of thermite, tons and tons. And have you ever seen how they demolish those buildings so neatly? They knock out walls. They surround these things. Doing that in a building that's a working building, almost inconceivable. Now, Building 7, I've thought before, well, there was a CIA thing in there and whatever. They could have built the building that way. But going in later and installing it, like the conspiracy theorists say, just in the months before with the new owner, does not seem likely. The government can keep huge projects somewhat secret from the people, if not from enemy countries. Things like the Manhattan Project, where people would think, hey, this really is, blowing up our own buildings. You think that? I don't think so. It would be incredibly difficult to install that stuff unless they'd installed it the whole time. The towers had a lot of combustibles to start chain reactions after about 600 degrees Fahrenheit. You've got all kinds of just about every kind of complex chemistry with ample oxygen. And the thing is, you're not going to get molten iron out of your steel with that much oxygen because the iron will burn and spark and burn. It will not go molten because with that much oxygen, its natural oxidization will be sped up way past it maintaining itself as a cohesive thing even into the liquid state. Also, I want you to remember that an energy falling, that's energy. That pressure of it falling with the wrong number of S's is energy. That eventually always becomes heat. Jumbo jets full of fuel are really big missiles. It's a pretty good way to start a fire. The Twin Towers underwent a huge-scale chemical reaction in which fire is not the only way or even the main source of heat. This isn't a campfire. You don't have to wonder what you're burning. There are lots of things even besides oxidization. And there's ways oxidization can happen exposed to water when things get hot enough. Even if there's no air, you can pour water on, it gets hotter because the water provides the oxygen. So you're using, I think, a simple idea of reactions. You're simplifying like it was just jet fuel burning, was just this, just that. No. This is a cocktail of every chemical we use in our society. Because I guarantee you that building had every technology, every chemical we use was in there. And the other thing is, as far as I've found, there was no thermite of any kind found in the wreckage, the traces. And you would need hundreds, thousands, I think, of tons of thermite to do what the conspiracy theorists say. So I don't know what happened. I certainly believe the government might want to do something like this as a false flag, as a, to get, one step past letting your enemy strike, creating an enemy and striking for them. I know they'd want to do that. That doesn't mean they were able to. That doesn't mean that's likely. It doesn't mean that it's necessary. In conspiracy theorizing, I approve of the reverse engineering and the boundary conditions of like, hey, that couldn't have been knocked down by a plane, therefore something happened, we don't know what yet, but let's keep going. Fine, and I'm fine with you pursuing it on that basis, even under these circumstances. But from what I see, the arguments that it is quite possible for planes like that to undermine a building like that, it is definitely conceivable. And the idea that there's a slam dunk and it's just denial to deny it, no. You have a much bigger burden of proof than you think if that's the case.